All right, next presenter. She has a deep sense of the silly and goes by Fifi to a select few. But her husband and sister also describe her as a modest and unassuming Midwesterner with formidable intellect and fearlessness. One would never know that she holds multiple degrees from Ivy League schools, speaks 5 languages, plays the piano with gusto, and rappels off skyscrapers to conduct structural inspections. Her husband recalls, when I met Liz 10 years ago, more than one of her friends, devoted friends, took me aside and insisted that I better know how lucky I was. I certainly do, he says. And now, here she is, the architect, passionate about living green with a dizzying moonlighting life. Please welcome Liz Newman.
I've been working as an architect for about 25 years, first in New York and now here. Institutional, residential, commercial, housing for homeless, you name it. But here and there, I've also found ways to go off to other places and usually get paid to have these architecture adventures, like spending a summer helping build a community center in a village in Senegal. On the left here, I'm hanging off a rope near Wall Street, inspecting tall buildings. Helped rebuild a medieval hill town in Provence for a couple of years, and then the 6-month Hunt Fellowship to visit projects under construction in historic sites all over France. On the right there, I'm walking under the buttresses on the roof of Notre Dame. My latest moonlight job has taken me to Nepal to work with the Kathmandu Valley Preservation Trust on the 10-year project to restore the Patan Royal Palace complex. I've spent a fair part of the last 5 years helping the New York and Kathmandu Valley offices with master planning, fundraising, and orchestrating the documentation of the palace. Here we're south of the Himalayas, flying over the city of Patan in the valley just next to Kathmandu. In both images, you see the city's dense construction opening up at the center, the palaces, pagoda temples, and square courtyard buildings set between the royal square filled with its own temples and the palace gardens behind. Toward the right of this 19th century photo, you can see the corner window of Sundari Chowk, which is part of the palace and one of the gems of Nepalese architecture. We'll come back to it. You get a sense in the foreground of how Newar life has always been lived outside in the city's streets and squares and in its thousands of temples. The valley is a major seismic zone. The 19th century photo above shows the palace buildings facing the square with the temple to Talaju, the protective goddess of the Mala kings. Then the same shot in 1934, just after the last major earthquake. By then, Kathmandu was the capital, Patan had no king, and the rebuilding of the palace was not up to earlier standards. This courtyard is the palace's main social gathering space, with the Talaju temple on the left, all as rebuilt in the earthquake. Even if it has lost its own rooftop temple and borrowed pieces here and there, it's breathtaking, right? But as one writer put it, what do you do with a royal palace in a country that has just sent its monarchy to hell? These ladies out in the square probably have little interest in the UNESCO World Heritage Site they're seated on, don't know that they're in what's considered the best historic urban ensemble in South Asia. They are at the out with the old point in their modernization process that we called urban renewal in the US. So we hope to give not just tourists, but also locals reason to embrace the valley's heritage. Sundari Chowk, the corner building we saw earlier, is considered the height of medieval architecture under the 17th century Mala kings. This ornately carved wood window with its screen and extended lintel and sill, and the special bricks tapered on all 4 sides to create hairline mortar joints are typical of this style. We are wrapping up a technical volume which analyzes and makes recommendations for each problem that we find in each type of wood, brick, and stone. This page addresses problems caused by groundwater soaking the base of the building during the monsoon season. The book is a first for Nepal and will be published later this year as a reference for future work in the valley. Sundari Chowk's courtyard is a beautiful, intimate outdoor room with a screened wood gallery around the top. The whole courtyard can be seen as a stage set for Siddhi Narasimha, the Mala king who built it, to step down to the water spout and perform his ritual worship with everyone else hidden above watching. The 1647 step well or tushahiti at the center of the courtyard is a masterpiece of Nepalese art lined with 81 little stone sculptures of tantric deities and a miniature replica of the Krishna temple just outside in the square. All the symbolism of these buildings is religious and all can be traced to water. Although it is said that when water flows to the Tushahiti, there will be peace in Nepal, this spout was dry for over a century. King Mahendra himself could not get it started for his 1958 coronation. In 2009, the spout was stolen. In 2010, we installed a replica and restored the step well and kilometers of water lines, and last year, the original was found again. Here, yay! Here below one of the stone deities, a tiny dancing skeleton is surrounded by bird-headed figures. Teams of conservators work on the major art pieces like these carvings, but the materials for most of the work are very basic. Carpenters and masons often work like the guy on the left, just sitting on the ground and using simple hand tools. Here's the famous corner window from the inside. This would be the prime spot, maybe with cushions, to sit and watch the crossroads below, which is the historical center of Patin. It reminds me of Frank Lloyd Wright, so proud of his innovative corner windows that broke the box, but the Mallas broke the box 300 years earlier. Even in a palace this elaborate, the interiors are simple. Packed mud floors, maybe with Chinese rugs, brick walls, exposed roof timbers, a bit of carving. The interiors with their screened galleries and window seats tucked under the overhanging roofs are places from which to watch the life of the courtyard and the royal square below. The garden wing of Sundari Chowk collapsed in the last earthquake, and the bureaucrats using it as a tax collection office at the time built this to replace it. This facade is unsalvageable, and the original design is a mystery, so what do you think? Should we reconstruct the 30s design, go contemporary, do a 17th century-ish take, competition for local architects? The end result of this project will be the creation of a National Museum of Architecture, sharing the palace complex with the renowned Patin Museum, which opened in 1997, a Buddhist art collection in a palace building renovated over 12 years by Viennese architect Götz Hagmüller. The main doorway into Sundari Chowk shows it all: the building's beauty, history, and problems, the bureaucratic sign tacked up by the palace's owner-manager, the Nepal government, who last used this building as a prison, the offering of enamel paint, destroying a carved stone deity, even as it anchors it in the daily life of the worshippers who keep on painting it. Then this man, in his traditional Newar white costume and hat, overlaid with Western jacket and shoes. He's lived through Nepal's transition and modernization so far, and now he's sitting on the threshold with his back to the palace, watching the square, maybe wondering where Nepal's going next. Makes me wonder where I'm going next. Thank you.
Did you not get swept away to a whole nother world? Liz, thank you so much for that inspirational presentation. And yeah, Liz during her spare time saves landmarks of the world. And I drink beer on stage. Come by! Woo!